You're listening to Big on Small, the official small business podcast powered by Inspire Hub. I'm Carolyn Hart.
And I'm Samantha Castro.
We unpack the big ideas happening in small organizations for businesses, agencies, schools, towns, charities, and teams.
Because what we know is that good things come from small packages, and there's nothing small about doing good. Have you ever noticed that a hero, a real hero, often doesn't see themselves as one? Today's guest is no different. Donna Stoney is the epitome of a humble hero. Donna has spent 3 decades building a career that places people and their quality of life at the center of everything that she has done. A serial entrepreneur, Donna is the founder of Stoney Wines, as well as the executive director at Stony Brook Residential Services, LLC, helping adults with disabilities. When she opened Stoney Wines in 2019, she found herself breaking down barriers and perceptions as Oregon's first Black female head winemaker. But this was not her first history-making endeavor. In today's episode, we discover how Donna's big decision to follow her passions resulted in transforming the lives of people all around her. From college basketball to creating a community that is all-inclusive, Donna reveals the power of pairing your purpose and passion in an episode that we know is sure to lift your spirits and leave you inspired. There's nothing like settling in after a long day of working in your small business and cracking open a new bottle of wine. Then getting all cozy on the couch and opening that book you've slowly been working your way through. Or, let's face it, maybe just picking that book up and then deciding after a paragraph or two, you'll just turn on Netflix and watch the next episode of your latest TV show binge. No matter what you decide to do, whether it's alone or with friends, you can enjoy your night with that glass of wine and recharge and unwind. That relaxing and self-care that you're doing in that moment is exactly what we're going to be focusing on in today's episode as we talk to Donna Stoney and hear her incredible story of becoming the first Black female winemaker in Oregon. To understand who Donna is today, we need to go back to her childhood. Yes, all the way back there, because the way she grew up heavily influenced who she is today. It's the 1970s, and Donna lives with her family in Corpus Christi, Texas. Even though they live in the city, her father has land and a small farm about 16 miles out in the countryside that they help out with every week, if not most mornings.
We had like a farm, and so I would get up in the morning with my dad, and we'd go feed the chickens and the cows and, things like that. So I was pretty active as a 10-year-old because I was always involved in something. I was always moving. I played every sport you can imagine. Yeah, I was a tomboy, never sit still.
Donna's family was always keeping her on her feet, and that's because throughout her childhood, her parents, and especially her mom, instilled in Donna this moral responsibility to help people in whatever way she could. And for Donna's family, that mostly meant having an open-door policy and spreading the love through food.
My mom was very caring and giving, and growing up, like my mom's house used to be the home where everybody would come over, eat. She sent them on their way or they stay overnight.
This open-door policy that her mom had really impacted Donna. It was through this that she found her calling in life, to help people. It wasn't until she visited her sister's special education classroom that she discovered her niche and wanted to help people with mental disabilities. So in the late 1970s, Donna studied social work at the University of Texas in El Paso, Texas. This is where Donna begins setting a few things into motion. One is continuing her love of sports, which grants her the opportunity to play for the women's basketball team and set a record while there.
I believe the article is in the Argonian about me hitting like 18 points and I missed one. Nobody has ever broken that record where I've only missed one shot, which was a free throw. So 17 out of 18, which was really, 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 really good. They called me the spark plug because I never wanted to start. I never wanted to be the first team. I said, no, I'd like to come off the bench. And they called me the spark plug, the coach did, because I would always come in and hit a lot of points, get a lot of free throws and a lot of rebounds because I just would get spunk and just would run in there and just hit 12 points in no time.
Being a former basketball player myself, I always loved teammates like Donna, who could come hot off the bench and get stuff done on the court. And this story is fitting because that's honestly how Donna is, both on and off the court. She's the spark plug that gets in and makes things happen. But she's very thoughtful about what she does, because around this time in college, Donna really starts to take an interest in wine while pursuing her degree in social work.
Really enjoyed drinking wine. And, it's so funny. I tell this story all the time about how I always loved Merlot. And most people don't usually drink, Merlot most of the time, not everybody. You don't drink it until you had some years in your life. So, but me, I started out right away with the Merlot. I just liked how, the fruit was forward and the tannins was just right. And I just enjoyed it. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to own my own vineyard.
Donna, the spark plug, had a spark of inspiration sitting in her college apartment drinking that Merlot. One day, she'd own her own vineyard. One day. But until then, she wanted to pursue her first love of helping people. So after college, she started her career in social services. In 1982, Donna traded the yellow sunshine of Texas for the green forests of Oregon. And it wasn't until her move to Oregon that she found out something pretty special about herself.
I came home to Oregon, I moved here to Oregon, and they had a Native American basketball team, and I wanted to play, and that's when I found out, you got a little Cherokee in you, don't you know that? And I said, no, I don't. And my mom showed me the papers and whatnot, and she says, yeah, you do. So you just go back and tell them that you can play on this team. And so I did, and I played basketball with the Native Americans, which was it was so much fun.
Through wanting to play basketball, Donna found out that she had Cherokee blood in her. She knew she had some Jamaican blood, but she had no idea she had Cherokee until that moment, which is quite a cool way to find out, to be honest. So Donna, being the spark plug, Cherokee, Jamaican, strong Black woman she is, dives into the social sector and starts helping people in Oregon.
I came here to Oregon. I worked at East Coast Diversified Services, and I was a kind of a skills structure teacher at this place. And so I said, I don't really like it here in Oregon. It's raining too much. So I left and moved to California. And then when I moved to California, I worked at a home for Prader-Willi syndrome. And I specialized actually in Prader-Willi syndrome, which is a syndrome where they eat and never feel full. It affects chromosome 15. And so you have to lock up, the cabinets and put them on special diets due to complications of, diabetes and congestive heart failure and so on.
During this time, while she was specializing in Prader-Willi syndrome cases, Donna was starting to really enjoy the work she was doing and thought maybe this is where she would stay for a good while. It was about 3 years into living and working in San Diego, California, when she got a call from a friend back in Oregon telling her about an opportunity in the social services sector back home.
One of my friends called me here from Oregon and said, you got to apply, come and apply. And I was like, I don't want to apply. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I went ahead on and I applied and got the job for Multnomah County Developmental Disability Office.
When Donna moved back to Oregon to take the job as a case manager for the Multnomah County Development Disabilities Office, she had no idea what she had just become. Here's Carolyn.
When you became a social worker, you also you broke some records, right? You were the first
Black case manager in the county in Oregon. Yes, that was 1988. I got hired at Multnomah County, and it's funny, doing Halloween, October 31st, 1988. I had about 468 people on my caseload, and I would say probably 90% of them were Black.
So 90% of your caseload are Black, and yet that blows my mind that it was 1988 and you were the very first Black case manager with 90% of the caseload being Black. That just seems like a strange, shouldn't be, but it is a strange reality that we live in.
And I didn't know that I was the first Black case manager. But I was like, hey, geez, there's no Black people around here. I wasn't used to that at all. It's like, I'm the only one. Where's everybody,
Now, even in 2020, many people of color have the experience Donna just described. They walk through the office building and they just see. On the podcast post for this episode, we linked to a 2019 Harvard Business Review article that talks about working toward a racially just workplace. In the article, it says research conducted by the University of Virginia shows that because Black employees feel a heightened sense of difference among their mostly white peers, their ability to contribute is diminished. The sense of isolation, of solitude, can take a toll, one of the leaders told them. It's like facing each day with a core of uncertainty, wondering if the floor you're standing on is concrete or dirt, solid or not. Here's Carolyn.
Do you see yourself as a historic figure that was the first to do something within the government at Oregon?
No, not really, because again, I'm just the kind of person that just enjoy helping people. That's what I've always done. You got to remember, I've been in this field for 38 years, and so what you get is what you get. It's who I am. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. If it's something that you didn't do right as a provider, I'm going to let you know that. But then on the other hand, I'm also going to support you as much as I can. So, no, I don't feel any different.
For 27 years, Donna worked at the Multnomah County Developmental Disabilities Office. While there, Donna helped to start the first group home and continues to help people with Prader-Willi syndrome. In 2003, Donna saw an opportunity to branch out with her social work.
I got this young lady from out of the state institution on my caseload. A young lady had difficult times with behaviors, and they couldn't find any place for her to go, and had been in about 11 placements. And so I talked to the county and the state, and I said, you know what, let me try this. I think I can do this. Let me just try this, And so I did that and started Stoney Residential Services. I just went from there.
Donna opened her first home in 2003, and since then has opened 5 more group homes in Oregon, serving people with behavioral and mental disabilities. Here's Carolyn again.
I love hearing your story because it's an interesting thing. There are some people in our lives, right? You see them, they go out and they want to be something. They want to have that attention. And then there's some people who just want to get stuff done. And you're the person who just wants to get stuff done. And the attention, you're not comfortable with it, are you? Like, you're like, oh.
No, I don't like that at all. Just because I just enjoy, just doing what I do. I think you have to love what you do. You have to have a passion. If you don't have that, then, what's the purpose of doing it? We all are on this earth for a reason, and we all have a purpose in life. And I believe my purpose in life is to help people and to bring happiness. And that's just who I am. I just think it was my calling and of helping people and trying to change the world and, just get a little bit of social service. I think we need that. People just don't care, as much as like they used to back in the day. So I'm glad that I pursued this career. It's been very good to me, very good to me. But I think I'm done. I told my kids, I said, I really just want to concentrate on my second career because this is like the second part of my life. I guess you can say the second chapter in my life.
That second chapter in Donna's life, setting yet again another first in the state of Oregon by becoming the first Black female winemaker. Her journey to that and how she's building her brand to create positive change and conversations is coming up after the break. This episode of Big on Small is brought to you by us, Inspire Hub, creators of the award-winning iHub app, the small business digital experience platform that allows you to rapidly build websites, apps, and portals to help your small business thrive. Long before the pandemic, Inspire Hub was working 100% remotely and creating a platform specifically to help under-resourced small businesses engage better. With Inspire Hub on your side, you'll receive our award-winning digital experience platform, world-class branding, personalized training, and the trusted consulting you need to take your small business to the next level. We even wrote a book on how to engage in this remote world. Loving Remote is a free ebook to help you navigate this new digital landscape. Learn more about how Inspire Hub can help you build relationships with the people who help build your small business, including customers, employees, and partners. Go to inspirehub.com/remote to learn more today. That's inspirehub.com/remote. By now, you should have a pretty good idea of who Donna is as a person. She's kind, caring, a mentor, a helper, a friend. In the beginning, I only highlighted briefly the role family played in Donna's life, but it's actually one of the biggest and most important things to her. Family is everything to Donna. And just like her mother's house, which was always buzzing with people coming and going, when she started her family, she knew she wanted her house to be just as welcoming, especially to young people.
A lot of the kids would always come over here. Now they're all grown up, but they would come over here to my house. I'd make sure they have breakfast if they came for breakfast or lunch or dinner. A lot of them would stay in. Some of them would even sneak through the window, and I'd go in the room and say, well, when did you come in here? But they always knew that they had a safe place to come if they were having issues at home, and they would come and I'd sit and talk with them and say, okay, so we're going to figure this out because you're not going to stay overnight. I'm going to tell you that right now. We're going to call your mom and your dad, and they're going to come and get you because, I'm not going to be the one that's going to split between the two of you. And so, but kids always knew to just come over here and they knew they could have fun, and they knew that they respect me. And right today, all of the kids, they call me Miss Donna. They don't call me Donna. They call me Miss Donna. And I'm sure a lot of that, like I said, come from my mom because she taught us to respect our elders and taught us to respect people in general. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to say that I did this all on my own, but my parents, like I said, have always had an open door, and my home is just like that. If you say you're going to come by, come on by. You don't have to have an invitation. Just ring the doorbell. Come on in. If I'm cooking, come on in and help cook. If I'm done, cooking, come on in and help clean the kitchen. You're going to have a good meal. You're going to have wine or beer, soda, whatever it is that you enjoy. But by the time you leave, you're going to be, I'm happy and moving on to the next step. I guess I'll go home and go to bed, that kind of a thing. So I do enjoy people being over at my home, and I enjoy sharing that time.
I love it so much because I remember you were telling me a story about one of your girlfriends who was frustrating you because, she's always like calling to see if she came over, and you were like, you don't need appointment to come see me. The appointment is the doorbell at my front door. Just come over.
I know. I tell her that all the time too, and she just will not hear it. Finally, the other day, she did do that the other day. She actually came over. She says, it was like 10:30, I think it was. And again, I'm one that's going to open my door. And she was like, I know you said I can come over anytime, but it's 10:30 late. And I said, I was just getting ready to go to bed. And yes, it is. And she started laughing. I said, but come on in and have a glass of wine.
When we interviewed Donna, her mother had recently passed away. But as you heard, she was so open to talking to us about the influence this incredible woman and her father had on her that I was just so amazed. This woman, everyone, is so strong and resilient. Anyways, food was and still is a big component of how she shares time with others. And Donna gives credit to her mom for teaching her the family recipes that have been passed down from generation to generation. Recipes that Carolyn cannot wait to try.
Just for all of our listeners, I just need to say this: skillet cornbread. Skillet cornbread.
Good old cornmeal with some milk and buttermilk and, some sugar and eggs. And, it's fun to make. My grandma used to make that all the time. And then, of course, my grandma taught my mom, and then my mom taught, me. And I'm working on teaching Dominique, which is my daughter, to keep it in the family. And that was one of the things she said the other day when my mom just passed away. And that was one thing she was like, Mom, we have to continue with all of these different recipes and all these different traditions, the Sunday dinners that we have. And I said, we'll continue because it's going to be passed on to you now. So,
I just, we were talking about what it feels like in your kitchen, because I think obviously wine, your passion for wine, your passion for food, which has me, banana pudding. And skillet cornbread. And you were telling me about the brisket. The way you described your brisket that your family does and how you pair it with wine. So everybody understand that's listening. I'm a vegetarian and I was salivating. I was like, it's been a long time since I've had meat. And I'm telling you the way, the recipe, the family recipe that you have, and just the whole feel of you and your family and your winery of, I can't wait. When I come over, we're going to be listening to Anita Baker or drinking your Stoney Wines, and there will be no skillet cornbread left, but it'll be great.
Yes.
For all of our big on small food lovers out there, I asked Donna to describe her brisket for me that Carolyn just alluded to, and that took us into a whole conversation about food and family, and it was just too much to put into this podcast. So if you want to check it out, there's a mini bonus episode on the podcast post for this episode, along with some pictures of Donna and her family enjoying it all. Go to bigonsmall.biz/podcast to listen and check it out. Jumping back into things though, Donna retired, air quotes, out of social work in late 2014, but she continued to run her small business, Stony Brook Residential. With her retirement, she thought it was the perfect time to start working on that dream that she had way back in college, the dream to own her own wine vineyard. And that started with her learning the basics. She signed up to take the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, the WSET, Level 1 course at the Napa Valley Wine Academy. Over the course of the next few months, Donna studies and passes her Level 1. Next was her Level 2 certification, which she was actually able to take in person in Portland, Oregon. It was here that she first got a glimpse at just how different and difficult jumping into this industry was going to be.
Even when I was in class, people, I don't want to sound horrible, but people had their little cliques. They all worked for vineyards, and I was trying to get a little bit involved. That's when I basically saw a little bit of hesitation, in terms of I was the only Black person in the class. And I remember I was trying to get into talk to people to say, hey, I'd like to come and do some harvesting there at one of your vineyards. Well, they just didn't want to. I don't know why. I don't know what it was. Who knows?
Donna reached out to what felt like every vineyard and winery in the region. And still, she couldn't get her foot in the door. That is, until her friend suggested one specific winemaker to her.
She was like, hey, Donna, I heard about this Black guy here in Oregon. He's the first Black winemaker. And I was like, really? And I said, no, I haven't heard of that. And so she said, well, I know this guy. His name is Bertoni Faustin, and he's Abbey Creek out in North Plain, which is kind of about 45 minutes from the east side. And so I said, okay. So I just went over there, introduced myself. I told him that my dream is to become a winemaker. And I said, it's really hard to get into the industry. I tried to go to different places and talk to different folks, and people just not giving me the time of day. And, I just figured, she told me about you. And so I thought, well, I'm going to come here and pursue it. And I did. And so here I am. I was wondering if you could help me, make my dream come true.
And what was Bertoni's answer? No. Here's Donna again.
One thing people told me was he won't help you. You're going to have a hard time getting in, just like it is everywhere else. It doesn't matter if he's Black, you're going to have a hard time getting in. But I was real persistent. Like I wouldn't stop. Like I was showing up every Saturday. Every Saturday when he was open, his tasting room was open on Saturdays and Sundays because I didn't know where his vineyard was at the time. And so I just kept showing up.
Buying all his wine.
Buying his wine.
Here.
Exactly. I'm here still. Showing up. That's what I kept doing. And I just kept talking
How many times were you in his tasting room where he was finally like, okay, fine.
I got it. It was months. Really, seriously. I kept going. I just kept going. I said, eventually, at some kind of way, he's got to see I'm serious about this. But I can understand that. People do come and go, he says. You get a lot of volunteers and they come one day and they're gone. So I get it. They say that they want to do this, but then they don't want to do the hard work. And it is hard work because he took me out to his vineyard and it was hot. We were pruning and learning the difference between the vines and, the shoots and watching all the buds come out. And then, veraison, which is the color, as it's getting ready to, close to harvest. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. So I just kept going out there pursuing it, just talking to him. And he said, okay, you serious? I can see you serious now.
I love that you were showing up for months. Like,
it's like, I'm not giving up.
So we're clear. You weren't going to stop until he finally relented, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like it would have been like 4 years later and you would have been like, do you see me?
I am right here in front of you right now.
Wow. Persistence.
It is. I'm telling you. I remember getting interviewed by this young lady and she said she tried to get in with Tony and she says, I said, well, you wasn't persistent. You just have to keep coming. You just have to keep showing up. That's what you do when you really want something. If you really want something, you just keep going and going and going and going. And people get sick of you and eventually they'll say, okay, all right, okay. So we used to laugh about that, Tony and I. And just go keep going. You hear this all the time too from like movie stars. When I think about Tyler Perry sleeping in his car, and you hear about people doing this. Anita Baker, when you hear her story, and you hear about people. People just think that most of the time you just jump in there and you have all this money, which I don't have a whole bunch of money. I never did start out with a bunch of money. I just saved. That's what it was, and it's like you be persistent and you go after your dream and it'll happen. But that I think that's with everybody in life. I think people think movie stars and all these, folks that make it never have a hard time, but you do. Everybody have a hard time trying to make it.
Yeah, and small businesses right now, I mean, that's how much do you want it? You gotta just I know you're tired. I know it's scary. I know that, but what are you gonna do? You're gonna give up? I keep saying to my team, this is not the time for us to retreat. This is the time for us to, get down to work.
Yes, you really do. You have to just be persistent, even if it's hard. Because somebody, honestly, somebody at some point is going to hear what you want and believe in you and then give you that chance.
So, what did Donna want to get out of winemaking? Well, just like her time in social work, she really wasn't looking to be the first of anything. Yet, here she was, becoming the first Black female winemaker in Oregon in 2019.
Sometimes I don't believe it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, this is really happening here. Yes, the first Black female winemaker here in Oregon. And again, it's just something that I enjoy. I love making wine. I like making people happy. That's what my wine is all about, just sitting back and enjoying yourself. And I don't ever look at it as a first. I really want to focus more on the wine because it's going to take a lot of my attention in order to get better at becoming a winemaker. I always say becoming because I know I'm a social worker, 38 years, you're a social worker. I can probably solve a problem for you quicker than you can turn your head. So that's how well I want to get with making wine. And, that's what I'm trying to, strive for right now. And so I know that.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about you, Donna, is in everything that you've done, whether you were a child and a tomboy run around with chickens, or going to college and playing basketball, or choosing a career in social work and now launching your own wine label, every single one of those things has one thing in common, and that is you're passionate about it. There's a lot of people who have dreams. There's a lot of people, I would say, that have dreams of owning their own wine label and, winery. I think that is not necessarily an unusual dream. I think what is extraordinary is that you're making it happen, because I can tell you that even like my husband and I have said, wouldn't it be lovely to have your own winery? Of course, the reality of working in wineries is that it's basically you have no life.
That's true. Hmm.
I've learned that. But I mean, what's the difference? Because you know this, right, Donna, as a social worker, there's lots of people who say they want to do things, and there's a very small percentage who then go and do it. What do you think is the difference maker?
I think it's your drive. It's how bad you want it. If I could have done both of them at the same time, I always think to myself, geez, if I'd have started being a winemaker 38 years ago, my goodness, where would I be right now? If I'm this successful in this one, man, where would I be with this other one? So I think it's your drive and your passion, as I said earlier, and how much you enjoy doing what you're doing. And the biggest thing for me, I think that I tell people all the time, if you really believe in yourself, you save. That's what I did while I was at the county. That was the reason why I was at the county and saving. I would put money away because I knew I wanted to have this vineyard. I started out with, $50. I started out with actually $20. And then next thing you know, it was $50. And then it was 100. And then I was at 750. And then I went on and on and on and on. And that's how I saved for 27 years.
So I love this story because there's so many people who are thinking, Donna, they do say this, like, if you own a winery, you must have deep pockets. That's what they say, right?
Yeah, exactly. That is a lie, right? Hmm.
And I love the fact that your story is this, that you're like, I was a social worker on a government salary, and you started off with like that first $20, fast forward a couple decades, give or take, and you have a winery.
Because I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Not to get all like punny here, but you planted a seed and it grew up literally into your dream. And you made it happen with a teeny tiny seed of funding that you did for yourself. That's amazing.
Yes. And I haven't got one investor at all. And people always say, won't you get an investor? I don't want an investor. No, I want to do this on my own. I believe that I can, and I'll figure out a way to get money, whether it's through grants or through whatever to help me, like production that I'm talking about. I want my own production. I want my own tasting room. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to, find money source. And so, and I said, well, the best thing to do is start selling this wine and you can do it. So there we go. And I think that if you just put a plan in your head and really stick to that plan and don't let anything get in your way, because a lot of people said to me, you'll never be able to have a residential home. That's hard to do. You would never be able to do that. They also said, oh, you will never become a winemaker. You will never. Well, when people tell me things like that, it just makes my drive even more, you know. So don't ever put a challenge in front of me because I'm not going to let it go. If you're going to put a challenge in front of me, I'm going to show you that I can. And I think that's all about the drive.
So for you, it really comes down to don't you tell me what I can't do because then I'm going to show you exactly that I can.
Exactly.
I completely understand Donna's thinking here because I, and I'm sure many small business owners listening to this right now, identify with this way of thinking. You tell me no, so watch me go prove you wrong, right? Now, sometimes, especially when we're younger, this doesn't always work out, but when it does, and when you can proudly take the steps to move towards doing something that someone said you couldn't do, it's a feeling like no other. And sometimes with that feeling, it's hard to stay humble. But for Donna, she's nothing but humble because she knows what she's doing is not for herself. Here's Carolyn.
You're so humble, but it's not just that you're as you and I were talking and we were talking about Black Lives Matters, it's not just that you're Black, it's also that you're a woman entrepreneur. And, as we have that shared and, owning your own wine label. I mean, there's not a lot of women winemakers and wine owners. You might have women winemakers, but they're not necessarily winery owners. And then you might have women winery owners who are not the winemakers, but you are two. You are both. And that's phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah. Well, my goal is hopefully that I'm paving the way for the next young lady, a person of color, Black specifically, hopefully paving the way for that individual. I hope that when I get my tasting room going and my own production, because that's my goal, is to have my own production and my own tasting room. That is my goal over the next 2 years. And my hopes are that I can, mentor someone young and coming in and just trying to learn about the industry and to help, them go to school and support them to learning to become a winemaker as well. I mean, that's my goal that I would like to see happen. Some young lady wrote me the other day and we lost some of our email. And she's a Black woman that is starting school and wanted to come in and work with me. And I lost the freaking email. So I was so upset about that. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I hope she don't think I'm this kind of snob and I'm not trying to, don't want to help her. But I have been searching and searching and searching for this because somebody actually reached out and said, I need some help. Every time I try to get in, I can't get in. Will you help me? Corey had passed the email along to me, which is my significant other. And I don't know what the heck happened to it. We had somebody come in and redo our server and whatnot. I think it crashed. And so I lost it. So if she happens to hear this podcast, oh my God, I hope that she would get in touch with me again, because if I can help her in any way and mentor her in any way and get her in the industry, because it's hard to get in this industry here in Oregon. And so if I can help her, I most certainly want to do that. I know how she feels. I know how she feels because I've been there, and I don't want her to think that, and she probably thought that because that was a month ago. So she's probably thinking, oh, see, she done got too big and she thinks she's all that. And I would never feel like that. I would never think that I'm too big for anyone. And so, I definitely don't want her to see it. And she's going to keep trying. I probably same thing I did until she finally get an answer from someone. You know what I mean? So I'm going to find her. I told my brother, you need to dig into that server and find that person.
And here's hoping that she has your perseverance and she reaches back to you and says, Donna, what the
That's
heck?
what I'm hoping.
We need your help, Big on Small family. We're sending out the BOS SOS, the Big on Small SOS, the BOS bat symbol, if you will. And we need your help in trying to find this young lady. If you can, share this episode to your network with the hashtag Stoney Search. That's Stoney, Stoney, search. Let's find her together. So besides Donna wanting to pave the way for the next generation of Black female winemakers, she also is wanting her wine brand to symbolize all-inclusive. No, that's not all-inclusive like a hotel or resort's way of being all-inclusive. It's all-inclusive in the way that she doesn't want to leave anybody out. She wants people to be able to enjoy this beautiful wine and feel welcome to join the conversations that these bottles represent. Carolyn explains.
One of the things that I think that I love about what you are doing with Stoney Wines is that you're so much more than just a wine company. You are a wine with a very clear mandate and mission. Donna, someone asked me to explain, well, what do you mean when she's doing wine with a mission? I said, she's the Tom Shoes of wine. And the whole reason Tom Shoes became Tom Shoes was because it was so much bigger than just a pair of shoes, right?
Yes.
And that I think what is extraordinary is that you are doing for wine what Tom did for shoes.
To put into context what Carolyn just said, you buy a pair of Tom's shoes and one pair gets sent to someone in need, or the money from that sale goes to help one of their partnered organizations. For Stoney Wines, you buy a bottle of wine and your money goes directly back to helping people in Oregon. Donna explains.
Some of the proceeds are going to be going to the intellectual and developmental disability group homes that I work with. I'm also going to be doing a new vintage at some point of my mom and dad, and that's going to be going to Alzheimer's and COPD. So that's basically what I want people to get out of the wine, is just enjoying it and then know that it's going to a good cause.
And I want to lean into this because I think, yes, of course, it's about wine, it's about food, it's about you cooking me food, it's about it's about all those beautiful, and listening to Anita Baker, we talk about that. It's about all those things, but that is small in comparison to what you are actually doing with the rest of the mentoring, with what you're doing with your wine clubs. That is very exciting. I think the fact that you are going to be using your wine clubs as a place to not just get great wine, but to actually, you have a sister friends wine club membership that is going to bring all women of all races together to say, hey, we are together in this, and to highlight women entrepreneurs, right? And to, all of us who belong to the Sister Friends Wine Club for Stoney Wines, we're all going to be sharing your wine, and then also getting to lift a glass once a month to one of those great women within the actual wine club itself and other inspiring women. And you're creating this dynamic, this whole kind of shared thing of women together having wine and lifting one another and lifting a glass to each other. And I know for me, I was just like, that's amazing. That's just one of your wine clubs.
Another wine club that is offered is called the Ally Membership, which focuses on how we're better together. And in that membership, you not only get one red and one white bottle of delicious wine each month, but more importantly, you receive educational materials and information within that month's box on how to be a better ally for minorities. Here's Carolyn again.
You're not just getting these two bottles of wine, but you're creating a dialogue for the people that, and I think I said to somebody, I was obviously talking about this podcast coming up and talking about you because you you're my hero. I mean, you're just like this great, amazing woman who's breaking down barriers, doing all these things. It's just so incredibly inspiring, and you're super humble about it. And so, I'm telling people about what you're doing, and I said, it's really going to come down to this. When you show up to a dinner party in the future and you see a bottle of Stoney wine sitting on that table, it stands for something.
Yes, it does.
I mean, when was the last time I think of all the different wines, and I love wine too, that are out there, but to see a bottle of Stoney wine on the middle of the dinner table is literally a signal to everybody there. I stand against racism. I stand for equal pay and equal work. I believe in all inclusiveness. I believe in accessibility, because a lot of people, with what you've been working in social work, and you and I've talked about this, a lot of people don't even have that top of mind. And so suddenly the icebreaker is literally, it's Stoney wine sitting on the table.
Well, and that's what it's all about. Exactly. That's what it's all about. The sister friends, you're sitting down with your girlfriends and, you're having hard times with, whether it's a relationship or your kids, you're having, trying to deal with problem solve with your children, or just your, a good friend of yours, maybe they passed away, or, they got sick or something like that. And you're just sitting around just trying to enjoy life and enjoying that bottle of wine. And that's what it's supposed to symbolize, is to help you get through your process while you're thinking and, just bonding. That's what it's all about.
And I love that, because it is about the wine, but it's actually not about the wine, right? It's about, because we know, obviously, and you're in social work, and obviously some people have issues with alcohol, and everybody needs to drink responsibly. But it's that shared connectedness. You and we can be across a nation, and we can be lifting a glass together, or we can know that we're not alone in it. And I think that's just when you and I really started talking and leaning into that. I mean, I just thought, wow, how much this is needed right now. Right now.
It really is.
Each of Stoney Wines' creations has a story. Donna shared one of the most important and poignant narratives behind one particular wine.
The one wine that I have, it's called The Sons We Bear. On the back of the picture is, of course, is my nephew, my brother, Corey's on there, and my son. And that one, I did that specifically for guys. And that's the other thing that I want to bring into the picture, is getting guys together, drinking this Pinot Gris. The Sons We Bear, that's what it's all about, is them starting to, because in our Black culture, Black men don't tend to talk about things. And I had this big dinner for them at this nice, it's called the Riverview Restaurant here in Troutdale, Oregon. And it sits on the water. And so I had them come, and they were drinking the Pinot Gris. It was so funny. So they were drinking the wine, and I would peek my head in every once in a while. But after it was all over and they were, finishing up with the wine, they were just all talking about, it was about 10 guys, and they were saying, we need to do this every year. Why come we don't do this? This wine just brought us together, And I said, every year we'll have this little retreat for you guys. And that's what I want to bring for The Sons We Bear. That's what that Pinot Gris is all about. It's bringing Black men together and not feeling like they can't talk about things that are intimate, and not feel like it's okay to either cry or talk about something that's making them happy or sad or whatever. It's okay to be vulnerable for that moment, for that hour that you have that nice dinner and that wine. So that's the one that I really want to touch on more than anything, because it's a lot like Sister Friends, but yet it's for the sons that we bear.
I asked Donna how she felt back when she launched her first bottles, and how big of a role her family played in that launch as well.
So everybody helped me, from down to the, making the labels. Like Dominique, she's so good. She does a lot, man, because this is her legacy. I always tell her, I'm leaving this for you. When I leave this wonderful world, this will be yours. And so when we bottled the first wine, my whole family, we did the whole entire thing. We put all the labels on. We did everything by hand, everything by hand. So the family plays a really big part of this. Anytime that I ask my family to help, somebody's always pitching in. whether it's helping me go deliver wine somewhere or helping me bottle or, whatever, they are there for me. I was so excited and proud of myself. It just felt so good. And then I kept saying to myself, geez, is this really real? Like even when I see the bottles, I have them all in my office. And so I sit there and I look and I just be going, looking at the label going, geez, did I do that? Did I do that? I keep it in vision all the time. So it just makes me push even harder. And I say, well, I got 5 wines up there now. Think what I'm going to have in a year. I'm going to do 5 more. Then I'm getting 10 this time. So I've always got, my head is always thinking. I have a lot of visions in front of me in my office to help me continue to pursue my dream. Because it's going to be a big vineyard someday. I remember speaking to a girls' giving a couple of months ago. Someone asked me to come in and talk about who I am and what I've been doing and just trying to help African-American young ladies. And so I went in and spoke and I said, I'm going to be a millionaire in a year. And then the one lady stood up and said, you will be a billionaire. And I just thought that was so funny. I said, okay, if that's what you say, I'm going to be a billionaire then. So it's all about your dream and believing in it and making it happen. And then people supporting you, that's so big. Nothing is too big to dream. Nothing is too big to dream. It's just all about how far you want to push it.
Donna is now studying and pushing towards her WSET Level 3 certification. And although she no longer grows from Bottoni's vineyard, she's happy working with her fellow winemaker, Andreas Wetzel, out of Willamette Valley in Oregon. As we near the end of this episode, Carolyn wanted to do something a little different with Donna to lead us out. In order to get the full experience of what's about to happen next, I invite you to go grab your own glass of wine. For me, I'm just going to top mine up right here. Okay, there we go. And as we experience this last bit of this episode together, I raise my glass to you and your small business.
I want to do a little exercise now for our listeners. I'm going to pretend right now we're in a podcast and we're separated, but I'm going to pretend that I'm in your kitchen. We've got Anita Baker playing. What's she playing in the background, by the way? What's your favorite song?
Giving you the best that I got.
Of course, Donna's giving me the best that she's got. Of course. Anita Baker, if you are listening, this woman, you need to meet her because she's amazing. So we're listening to Giving You the Best That We Got because we are giving each other the best that we've got as friends. And we're having a conversation. What are you drinking? What are you drinking in this conversation?
So right now I'm probably going to be drinking the Chardonnay, which is the Sister Friend. I'm going to be drinking that, and in fact, I did this the other day. I made a nice linguine with some shrimp. I used a half a cup of the Chardonnay to put into the cream sauce, and I had a nice little salad. My sister actually made the salad with a little bit of Bayani, which is the Pinot Noir, and she made a dressing out of that. That would be really good with that Chardonnay.
Wow. Yeah, so I'm going to have that too. And in this thing. And what are we talking about over your kitchen counter as we're nibbling?
Oh my gosh, as we're nibbling, it could be anything, whether it's, politics, the world, what's going on, how we're dealing with it, or, what are we going to do next week? Are we going to be going here? I know when we were eating the other day and we were talking about going to the beach, and they're like, okay, we'll stop at some wineries, just having typical conversation, just enjoying life. Now with my true sister friends, which I have on the back of the bottles, which are these young ladies that I've been with for about 28 years now. Now we sit down and we talk about all kinds of things, intimate stuff, and we just talk about work if we're working. Some of us are still working, some of us are retired, we just talk about the day-to-day. We usually meet every month, so it's fun time.
It's an interesting thing because I think what you're doing, there's a whole generation that is missing out on something that you and your sister friends have.
Mm-hmm.
That ability of shutting off the phones, getting a glass of wine, looking at each other and saying, hey, how was your week? Let's actually just do that connection. And I think it's something that is absolutely so important. When you look back at everything, this amazingly abundant journey that you've had, if there was one piece of advice that you would give to a woman entrepreneur or a small business right now, what would it be?
I say, dream about the dream that you want. keep it in your head. Don't let anyone get in the middle of anything that you're thinking. Go forward with it. Invest in yourself. Believe in yourself, and then make it happen.
To learn more about Donna and join in her mission to make wine all-inclusive, go to stoneywines.co. That's Stoney, Stoney, wines.co. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us find Donna's lost winemaker, share this episode with your network and use the hashtag Stoney Search. Be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Visit bigonsmall.biz to join our community of small businesses and find helpful resources. To learn more about what we talked about in today's episode, read show highlights, and more, go to bigonsmall.biz/podcast and visit the post for this episode.
We're working on new stories where we need your help. Call and tell us how you've had to make small or big changes to the way you do business since COVID started. The number to call is 1-844-967-CHAT. That's 1-844-967-2428. We listen to each and every message. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Big on Small. The Big on Small podcast is powered by Inspire Hub, creators of the award-winning iHub app digital experience platform. Big on Small is produced and directed by me, Samantha Castro.
And me, Carolyn Hart. Additional support by Sue Braden, Richard Brashear, Audrey Duncan, and Sue Jenks. Music by Noah Smith and mixed by Samantha Castro. For the full list of credits, visit the podcast page for this episode. Thanks for listening.